Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our weekly Immigration Heroes series brought to you by Immigration Question, your trusted platform for real time immigration insight and legal information. My name is Anusia Mukherjee, and I'm excited to be your host today. Today, we're turning the spotlight to one of the most emotionally powerful and legally important pillars in immigration, family based petitions. For many immigrants, family is not just a reason to migrate, it's the reason. But in the eyes of the immigration law, it's not enough to say you're related. You have to prove it. And proving it in a way that satisfies USCIS can be challenging, especially in sensitive situations like family separation, past abuse, or complex documentation. That's why our topic today, the role of family immigration petitions, strengthening your case, is not only timely, but deeply personal for many. To help us unpack all this, we're thrilled to welcome back a familiar face. Attorney Farah Kazi, founding attorney of Kazi Law Offices. Attorney Kazi is a recognized advocate for immigrant rights and with a deep understanding in both immigration and international human rights law. She has worked with hundreds of families, many facing trauma, detention, and persecution, and brings both legal expertise and live experiences to the table. Welcome back to the show, Attorney Kazi. It's always an honor to have you with us.
Thank you. It's great to see you.
To our audience watching live, grab your notepad and get your questions ready. This session will be full of useful takeaways, and we're also opening the floor for a Q&A session at the end. Attorney Kazi, let's start with the foundation. For families just beginning the petition process, whether they're sponsoring a spouse, parent, child, or sibling, what is the first thing they should understand about how family ties are evaluated legally?
Exactly what you just said in your question, really. Family ties are direct family members. So they would be a child, a parent, or a sibling, or a spouse. A lot of times people will say, I have an uncle or a cousin or something that can, sponsor me. But those are not a direct family relationship. So the very, very first thing that we do is to check to see what that family relationship is and if that family member is actually qualified to then sponsor you as a result.
Okay, thank you. That leads us to a question we get all the time from our audience. How can petitioners clearly and effectively present their family ties so USCIS understands and accepts the relationship? Are there certain documents or formats that are more persuasive than others?
Well, the easiest and probably the most persuasive is a birth certificate. If, for example, if it's a parent-child, then that's an easy way to fix it, right? A marriage certificate, if it's between a spouse, those are the easiest ways to do it. For sibling petition, you can do the same where you show birth certificates for both and then show that the parents are listed, the same parents. Those are usually the most persuasive. However, I have lots of clients that don't have birth certificates, they don't have marriage certificates, and then we have to get a little bit creative. And so other ways that you could actually do that is through affidavits from people who may know you and know your entire family and who can actually testify that there is a relationship. We also use pictures. We'll sometimes use church records or mosque records or whatever we can possibly find to show that familial relationship.
That's good to know. Very helpful. Now let's switch gears for a moment. You've worked with so many families over the years. What are some common mistakes you've seen in family based petitions that lead to delays or even denials? And how can viewers avoid these pitfalls?
I think that the biggest issues that I usually say, the biggest errors, is when people try to do it themselves or they hire what's called like a notario. So somebody who's not an attorney, but will say, oh, I can just help you prepare these documents as an immigration preparer. I think as much as I can possibly cry this or shout this from the rooftops, sometimes people continue to do that because they think it's cheaper, but in the long run, it becomes more expensive. You need a trained attorney who could actually help you step by step throughout the entire process, particularly because if you do get a preparer or a notario or somebody who is an attorney, They can't help you if there's something that goes wrong in the application, and they certainly can't advocate for you in court or in front of immigration officials, for example. So those are probably the biggest errors. A lot of times people think it's just so simple because you just have to fill out forms. A lot of times I'll hear like, oh, it's just forms. But those forms are very, very detailed, and they're designed to be a little bit tricky. They're not, black and white answers. So if you don't know specifically what immigration is asking for, it's very easy for you to tick the wrong box and then get your case denied simply because you didn't fill out the forms correctly.
That's a perfect transition into something more delicate but very important. What happens when someone is dealing with a more sensitive family situation? Maybe there's a history of abuse, abandonment, or family separation. How should they approach their petition without putting themselves or their loved ones at risk?
So this is actually something that I actually specialize in. My practice is predominantly, we do all types of immigration law, but we predominantly focus on people that are suffering from abuse or survivors of abuse, and in particular, domestic abuse or child abuse, or also or trafficking as well. I would say that first, you absolutely need to get your case evaluated by an experienced attorney who also has that kind of background and experience and is familiar with abuse situations or any sort of these traumatic experience kind of situations, because it might not even be in your best interest then for you to do a family-based position in which you're relying on the support of that same family member who is potentially abusive or could potentially exploit or manipulate the situation. In fact, we have so many other options available. For example, I'll just do a quick plug to something called VAWA, which is if you are married to a citizen or a resident spouse, for example, and you feel like you are in this abusive toxic relationship and you can't 100% guarantee that this person is going to support you throughout your entire immigration journey, you have a way for you to do like a self petition under VAWA. You don't need the support of anybody else, and you could actually get your green card, your work permit, your travel permit completely without any of that stress, which frees up your mind and frees up your life a little bit. Because if in the future, for example, you need to separate or you need to divorce or you just need to get an order of protection or you need to get anything, you just need to get out of there, you don't have to worry about your immigration status because that case is already pending regardless of what's happening within your marriage. There's also other things, for example, in abusive relationships or exploitive relationships in which you can qualify for something called a T visa as well. And children and siblings and other people that might potentially qualify for that could also do the same type of thing as self-petition as well. So a lot of times when you go to, traditional resources, they'll only give you the option that you need to have a family member who will apply for you, but that's absolutely not the case. There are several self-petitions, and particularly if you're in an abusive kind of relationship or an abusive situation, I strongly urge people to look at those self-petitions first so that you're not relying on your abuser for the next two,
Mhm.
3 years while a case is pending and kind of trapped in a situation that you don't need to be a part of.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
To our amazing audience, thank you for joining us. Whether you're tuning in from Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, we're honored to have you here. We are immigrationquestion.com, a two-in-one platform built with lead and case management to help simplify the immigration process. You can ask your immigration questions for free in any language and get connected with a verified attorney for guidance. You may also receive a free confidential initial consultation. Just visit www.immigrationquestion.com and sign up today. Now, Attorney Kazi, as a platform that connects documented and undocumented immigrants with trusted attorneys like yourself, what are your thoughts about how immigrationquestion.com supports the immigrant community today?
I think it's a fantastic tool. I think it's wonderful. I mean, the more information that you can get, the better your chances are, right, of being able to choose the best strategy for yourself, and also be able to pick the solution that would work for both you and for your family. I know a lot of people are very hesitant to do a consult. And so, for example, in our office, we offer a free case evaluation when you give our office a call, and then we will set up a consult with me as well. And the reason is because I know personally, just from going through the immigration process through with other family members as well, but then on top of that, because I've been working now more than 20 years in this business, I know that sometimes there's a little bit of trepidation and anxiety in jumping in and immediately telling your story to somebody and having to, you know, pay for a consult or something without even understanding what those options are. So I would urge people to take the opportunities like immigration question, but then also take opportunities like free case evaluations and things like that from attorneys as well, and try to get as much information as possible. There's no harm in getting information, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally. Thank you for that. We love to hear it. And before we open the floor for our live Q&A, just one last question. What's a what's one piece of practical advice you'd offer to anyone out there working on a family-based petition right now? Maybe something they wouldn't find on a USCIS checklist.
I would say make sure that if you have the time, you should actually do a chronological like list of everything, your entries, your departures, any sort of encounter with immigration, anything at all that you think might go against your case, and also things that can go in favor of your case. Write it out. I mean, for me, I'm old school, so I like to write everything out so that you can see it all in front of you. Write that all out before you even start to tackle the process of getting a petition. And I know that it seems like it's just filling out forms, but it's so much more complicated than that. And so you take the time and the energy and the money and invest in yourself and in your future by getting it done correctly.
Thank you. That was amazing. To our audience, the floor is now open. Drop your questions in the chat and we'll answer as many as possible. If you'd like to call us live and ask directly, dial 516-703-3483. All right, so the first question is, it's been 3 months I applied for an I-765 category C9. Still no decision, and people who file long after me get approved at the same field office. Why is my approval taking so long? Maybe they are giving me the GC?
Okay, well, the very first thing that I will tell you is I can't tell you how many times people compare themselves with other people and then they get frustrated because somebody else has been approved. You don't know
Mhm.
anybody's particular circumstances, and you don't know, how that case was progressing or how that case was even filed. Also, every single individual case is completely different. It depends on the officer who's going to review it. It depends on the office in which it was being sent. So I would first tell Damien that, relax about that for a minute. And also, 3 months is actually not that long. I know it's long for us because we're waiting for things, but for immigration purposes, that it means nothing to them. So generally speaking, a C9765 is going to take much longer than that. How much longer? It's impossible to say. I always have a hard time giving like those type of timelines, but I would say that if you haven't heard anything in like 8 months, then you can potentially reach out to immigration and see. And what you can do is you should actually have a receipt number from the application that you filed, and you can actually go on the USCIS website and check whether your case is normally is being processed normally or not, and what status it's in. Most likely, it's going to tell you your case is being processed normally because 3 months is really not that long of a time. So I would first check that, and then I would focus on whether, and then put it in your calendar that if you don't hear from them in about like 8 months, then you can reach out to them again or keep checking online to see if the category has changed or the status has changed.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question is from Sylvia. Can my fiance petition for me now, or we have to wait until after the wedding?
Okay, that's a confusing question because a fiance cannot petition for you as a spouse. So I'm guessing that you probably came in. All right, well, there's two ways to answer this. If you came in as a fiance visa and now you are waiting for the wedding so that you can get sponsored as a spouse, then yes, the answer is you have to wait until after the wedding. If what you're saying is that your fiance is willing to petition for you now, but you guys here in the United States and you don't want to wait, you again would have to wait until after the wedding so that he or she, I don't know, this is Sylvia's, but if they could then apply for you as a spouse. So it kind of depends on whether you're inside the country, outside the country. How did you enter into the country? For me to answer that, more clearly.
Okay, excellent. Next question is from Ashley. Excuse me. What will happen if my priority date becomes current, but I am outside the US and my passport has expired?
Okay, well, You can renew your passport up to 6 months beforehand, so you should absolutely do that anyway if you think that that's a possibility. If you're outside of the United States and your priority date has become current, I would have to know what kind of case you have pending and if you had permission to travel outside of the country during that process, right? So it's entirely possible.
Mhm.
Sometimes what happens is when you go outside of the country, that they consider that to be an abandonment of your original petition. So I would, if that's something that you're considering or you're planning on travel, I would absolutely talk to an attorney before you make that step.
All right. Thank you. Next question is from Nicholas. If I had a falling out with my sponsor for family visa and we don't talk again, can I look for someone else to take over?
Has the petition already been filed? If it's already been filed, the answer to your question is yes, you can have somebody else to take over. But if it's already been filed, it's going to be a little bit more complex because you're going to have to let USCIS know. You're going to have to withdraw that person, and you're going to have to resubmit. It can be done, but again, have an attorney do it for you so that there's no confusion. They don't think that you're trying to close your entire application or something.
Okay. Devika is asking, I don't have many pictures together with my fiance because we are in a long distance relationship. Will it hurt our case?
There's no requirement that you have to have a lot of pictures. I mean, you should have at least one or some sort of proof that you've met. That's the requirement. You need to show that you've actually met and you spent some time together. So you can supplement that with plane tickets or a hotel reservation or even affidavits from friends and family as well.
Next is from Sophie. I got a green card through my husband last year and we're having marriage issues now. Can a divorce mess up my status?
Sophie, this is exactly what I was talking about before, and I'm so sorry that you're going through this. But if you have a 2-year conditional green card and you are going through marriage issues, for example, there is a way for you to file for an exemption so that you can continue to get your 10-year green card without the help of your spouse. If you have a 10-year green card, you don't really have to worry about that, a divorce at all, and you don't have to file for an exception. But again, this is something that I specialize in, and I actually work on these cases quite a bit. So if you do want to talk it out, of course, I'm available, but you can also consult with an attorney to find out what else you need to do in order to make sure that you are still protected.
All right. And our last question is from Irene. My sister filed for me some years back, but I just got married. Will it affect the
So
petition?
there's different categories for these petitions. Okay, so you've got unmarried child, unmarried, siblings, then you have married. So yes, a married petition does affect it. It does tend to make it a much longer process. I will tell you about sibling petitions because this is something that I say about all sibling petitions. First of all, they take a very, very long time. We're looking at something like 20 years processing time. So many people don't understand, Irene, that even in those 20 years, you don't get a work permit, you don't get any legal documentation. But then once those 20 years are up, you might have to then leave the country and fix your papers. So I would strongly, strongly get a second opinion and talk to an attorney to see if potentially you qualify for something else that's a much faster route and your marriage will have no effect on it.
All right. That was our last question. So that wraps up the main part of today's session. Thank you so much for joining us. And a special thank you to our special guest, Attorney Farah Kazi, for your practical and strategic
Yeah.
insights. We hope this webinar helped answer your questions. Remember, at immigrationquestion.com, you can ask your questions for free and get connected with a licensed attorney in good standing who can help you better understand your options. You may also qualify for a free confidential initial consultation. Visit our site to learn more. Don't forget you can rewatch this session or listen to previous episodes on Spotify. Just search for Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. Join us again on Wednesday for another timely discussion on H1B versus EB green cards, understanding the long-term strategy with attorney Ibrahim Kadri. Trust us, you won't want to miss it. Once again, thank you, Attorney Kazi, for your time, and we look forward to
Yeah,
having
of
you back again
course. It was
soon.
great talking to you. All right. Good luck, everyone.